call the regularly scheduled zoning and planning board review to order. The meeting for the month of March, right? 2023. Heidi, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Erin Cornell.
Present.
Thomas Callahan.
Here.
Keith Kyle.
Present.
Christopher Allman.
Here.
Joseph Paglia.
Absent with cause.
Anthony Brunetti.
Absent with cause.
James Manning.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 members present.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, this evening we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. We've got, as a zoning board review, we've got appeals of the building official's decision. The first one being BTRI Secana Investments, Plat S-1, Lot 7, 36 Secana Drive.
And just for the record,
Andrew Blaze on behalf of BTRI.
and Stephen Marcel on behalf of the town of Narragansett. By agreement, Mr. Chairman, the parties have agreed to move this to a special meeting on April 25th, 2023 at 6:30 in this room.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made, properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries 5-0. All right, next is 9 Exeter LLC, Plat S-1, Lot 129, 9 Exeter Boulevard.
Andrew Blaze on behalf of 9 Exeter LLC.
Stephen Marcel on behalf of the town of Narragansett. Again, Mr. Chairman, by agreement, the parties and all attorneys have agreed to move this to the special meeting on April 25th, 2023 at 6:30.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Next is East Side LLC, Plat S, Lot 140 at 11 Walcott Avenue.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman. Kelly Morris Salvatore for Eastside LLC.
And Stephen Marcello for the town of Narragansett. Again, Mr. Chairman, by agreement, parties and all attorneys have agreed to continue this to April 25th, 2023 at 6:30.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Properly made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Next is Rinaldi, Plat S-1, Lot 20, 45 Sylvan Road.
Andrew Blaze on behalf of the Rinaldis, Mr. Chairman.
Stephen Marcel on behalf of town of Narragansett. And again, Mr. Chairman, by agreement of the parties, we've agreed to continue this to April 25th, 2023 at 6:30, with the caveat that I agreed to put on the record that Mr. Rinaldi will not be in the country at that date, and this one will most likely be continued at that time to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Properly made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that motion carries 5-0. And finally, it's Beta,
Yes, sir.
Plat N-R, Lot 120, 49 Joy Lane.
Andrew Blaze on behalf of the Meadows.
Stephen Marcel on behalf of the town of Narragansett. Again, Mr. Chairman, the parties have agreed to continue this to April 25th, 2023 at 6:30 for hearing on that.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Again, properly made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries 5-0.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Mr.
much.
Blaze.
Take care.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the subject, a question for Steve.
Certainly.
Steve, what is the status of these now? The appeals?
What is the what of this?
The status. Is it basically stayed, or is
Nope,
it?
these appeals are moving forward at this level. The lawsuit is moving forward in federal court.
So the nature of the enforcement action is the issuance of an NOV
And an appeal.
and an appeal. But with respect to the individual, excuse me, the entities for which the NOV has been issued, is there any action required on their part outside of the legal thing, outside of the legal side right now? That's what I'm trying to get a handle on, by continuing these for another month, whether or not we're continuing the underlying cause of action for another month.
Well, we're not opening the hearing, so certainly hold that question, and I'd be glad to answer that question on the record when the actual hearing is opened.
Okay.
I don't want to do that now. I believe that would be procedural error if I did that now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Steve. All right, so the first item on our agenda this evening, we're acting as the Plating Board of Review. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just have one question about the continuing. Does
Please
this...
come up so we can hear you a little
Okay.
better.
Can you just state your name?
Stephen Randy, 44 Sylvan Road, Narragansett. There were notices sent out of violations, to the notices to the abutters. Will they resend the notices to the abutters?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, again,
Okay.
all these questions can't be answered at this time because the matters are just being continued. Steve, I'll be glad to talk to you directly regarding what the procedure is going to be, but not at the hearing. You certainly can ask me or Chris and Gary that question. But I can't get into it on the record because none of these hearings have been open.
Oh, open, okay.
But I'll be glad to speak with you
Yeah, that's
directly.
fine.
on
I
what's
thought
going
one
on.
of the reasons for holding it was to open it because there was a time limit.
Correct. We had to schedule it.
To schedule it,
So we had to schedule it.
Yeah, that's all, okay. As long as I know. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Just
Mr.
wanna ask that
Fran.
question.
Okay.
Thank you. You can go now.
Get by that hurdle. All right, so we're sitting now as the
Um,
Plating Board of Review.
Yeah, can we maintain as the zoning board, because Mr. Zangari's not here yet, and do, the
Oh,
two-
yeah.
Yeah, continue with either Emma or McGrath.
Okay.
No, so it'd be Mr. McGrath is here.
Mr. McGrath is here?
Yes.
All right, let's go, we'll take McGrath first then. Plat Y-1, lot 326, 10 Spring Cove Road.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr.
My name is Thomas McGrath.
Can you raise your right hand and be sworn, please?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last.
Thomas McGrath, M-C-G-R-A-T-H.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here just kindly seeking relief and approval to replace a 10 by 20 deck that was on the house with a 14 by 22 deck. The existing deck has been removed because it was just in disrepair and rot, and just not safe. I stated in the summary project, my house is an irregularly shaped house. It's 28 by 40, and then there's a long garage, which is 16 by 40. It's a flat roof garage, and extends past the back of my house. The relief I'm seeking is due to the unique or kind of odd characteristics of the structure of my house, which is the flat roof garage, and it extends beyond the back of my house, and not the general characteristics of any of the surrounding area. There's a gap between the deck and the garage, and that area would just accumulate snow and debris and water, which caused significant damage to my house. It would just, water and snow would sit there. I actually had snow in the garage that the wood was running on the side of the house. And I'm just trying to relieve that issue. By enlarging the deck, this will prevent the damage that I was continuously getting from this shape of this. The deck I'm proposing will be attached to the house as well as the garage. And also being attached to 2 points of the structure will make it more secure and safer during storms and high winds. and eliminating this gap is the minimum solution to the ongoing problems to the relief I'm seeking, and it's the least relief necessary. This proposal is not going to interfere with any access to or the use of any tidal waters. It's not going to degrade any existing water quality. It's not going to increase any stormwater runoff or diminish any shoreline structures. The hardship which I am seeking, the relief, is due to the odd shape of this house and the lot as well. The lot narrows, and I know I bought the house, it was that way. It's nothing, I'm not changing the footprint, I'm just looking to expand this deck a little bit to avoid that mess in the corner. I'm not looking to get any financial gain from this. I'm hoping to save myself from this problem that's ongoing with the buildup in the corner. And I'm not adding an extension or requesting a variance that's going to alter any surrounding area. I'm just seeking this relief with this, by extending the deck and attaching it to both sides of the house and the garage. I understand I'm over the 20% allowed in the R20 zone, which I'm in. My lot is 8,276 square feet, which I more closely relate to an R10 zone, which is 10,000 square feet, which would allow 25% building. I know I'd still be over, but I'd be over 1.3% instead of the 6% or 6.5%. I'm just seeking that relief as far as that deck is concerned. There was no stairs on the deck either. I'm not adding stairs. I was just trying to square it all off and keep it from everything building up in the corner of the house. Like I said, I was getting water in the house and the garage.
You mean stairs to the
There was no stairs. There was no
You mean
stairs on the
stairs
deck. Yeah,
to the
going
ground?
down.
But
Right.
you are adding stairs to get to the upper flat roof deck?
I'm sorry.
You are adding stairs to get to the upper?
No,
flat roof
I'm not
deck?
doing anything over the garage.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
this deck will just go to the garage.
So what does that mean in terms of verifying 2 steps up there?
That's been eliminated. Originally, I was looking to do a deck over that flat part of the garage and just continue it that way. I'm not doing it.
So,
The site plan has been amended just to keep the, to do the 14 by 22, not over the deck. Nothing over the garage. So there's gonna be a railing right at the end, so nobody's going onto the garage.
So this, Jill, question,
Yes,
presently it's over the lot coverage.
yes.
Is that with the deck that's been removed? Or is that with the deck that, is that counting the original deck?
Oh, I understand the question.
I didn't think I phrased it properly.
No, you did, Mr. Chairman. I believe that is counting the existing deck. But you've got me. Let me look at my report.
I'm just wondering what size deck could go on there and if any at all. And
Yes, I believe it was with the existing deck. It's in the existing conditions. The 10 by 20 deck.
okay.
So it was 20% over with the existing deck?
So his existing house, his lot coverage right now existing, including all structures, his shed is 25%. His existing house, the existing structure is 1870, which is about 22%, which is over the allowance. It's already over the 20% allowed, so he's not entitled to, the property is not entitled to the 15% deck exemption.
Well, would he have been able to just repair the deck that was existent and not come before us? The 10 by 20 deck that was already there?
So if the deck was structurally unsound, would he have been able to replace it in
Yeah.
kind?
Yes, he would have been.
So
Yeah. So
what's the issue now as far as the deck has been
Enlarging
removed?
it.
He's making it bigger.
Yeah, he's enlarging the deck.
No, but
Yeah.
as far as Mr. McGrath took it upon himself, or Wayne, did you declare that deck?
No, I think the deck came down
It did,
on
yes.
by the owner. And then he's proposing to build a bigger deck now, so he had taken down the deck.
Right, but once that deck is gone, and it's still over the lot coverage,
It was.
without
over.
that deck, Jill, is that what, right?
Without it, I don't know, with it, it was over, but I'm not sure without it.
I'm just wondering if Mr. McGrath made a
Right.
mistake by taking that deck off.
I can't answer
Well,
that
tell-
question, whether or not he made the mistake. What I can do is pull the file and see where we were, if you'd like to move on and let me get back to you.
Yeah, I just, I hope that's not the case, that's all. Because if something is voluntarily demolished, do we still look at it as being gone? Or how are you treating that way?
Yeah, at that point, the new deck would have to conform to the new to the regulations, unless we had documentation that the deck was structurally unsound, and they would be allowed to rebuild it in the same footprint. But,
Can we accept his testimony that it was structurally unsound, or do you need like an engineer's report, you know, I'm getting at here?
yeah, I mean, we would probably want some form of documentation and photos or from an engineer. But I believe you're looking for a larger deck anyway, correct? You're not looking to...
Yeah, I would have just replaced it, but it was in bad shape. I wasn't comfortable having anybody on it or being on it. And I was looking to just extend it, like I said, just because that
Yeah.
corner, it's just poorly designed to begin with. And if I could just absorb that and have it covered and just keep that area from getting snow and debris and water damage on the house again.
He is asking for, was the application in when the deck came down for relief?
I'm sorry?
At what point in time did you take the deck down? No, I'm just asking, was the application into the building official, did you give him a denial letter? I'm just,
Not until he came to us for a permit for the new larger deck, that we were told that the old deck was taken
Right.
down. So he didn't know that he was non-conforming at that point. Until he came in with the new plans and the new calculations, and it was deemed that he was, over, even though previously it was over as well. But
I mean, if I had known that it might have been a mistake, I wouldn't have moved that. I would have sectioned off so nobody could have gone on it. But
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
just,
sure.
I thought I was, being a little preemptive with it. I guess maybe premature with that. I'm not sure, but.
Jill, could you pull up the floor plan,
Yes, absolutely.
please? Showing the,
Existing deck.
all right, so Mr. McGrath, where, the issue you're talking about is here?
Yes.
What is the size of your garage, the flat area on your garage?
It's two different heights. It's only off about 6 inches, but it's 16, and it runs just about 41 and change from the front to the back.
That's all flat.
Yes. Yeah, it's flat from here all the way back.
What's causing the snow accumulation on the
It's
side?
just this weird, just that gap in between the two, it just draws everything in, like the snow and the debris, it builds into the corner. The water runs down, everything just sits in the corner. Like I said, my son might have pictures, but I literally had snow inside this part of the garage from the rot that was here, just coming underneath, that was all rotted out.
So the level of that deck is how much lower than the,
The deck and this part of the garage, it's like the same height. It's pretty much, it's the same height, maybe within a couple inches, if that. But it's the same height.
oh, it is?
Yeah. Yes.
And how-
Have you given any thought, actually, why wouldn't you put a deck area on top of the existing garage?
I really don't have the finances for it.
What's that?
I don't really have the finances for that much more. I'm just looking to keep it as simple as I can.
Well, I mean, you've
Oh,
already.
you mean instead of this?
Yes.
I wouldn't have access to that.
Well,
Unless
no,
I came
I mean,
out, I'd still
you-
need to build something here to get
You'd
access
have
to
to
that.
give yourself access.
Yes. And there's a door here, there's a sliding door here.
The slider is on the left side when we're looking at
It's,
it?
yeah,
That's a slider,
yes.
and that's just a walk door, Amanda.
How far a drop off is it if you just walk out that door without that deck there?
No, that's
Oh,
a
it's,
second story deck.
It's a
Yeah.
story, so you're a story.
it's a one-floor house, but it's a walkout because the property slopes down, so it's 10 feet.
How big is the gap between where the deck is and the garage?
It's about like 1.5 feet.
And the reason you want to extend it beyond 10-foot width right now is to get it out to be squared off with the end of the garage?
Yes, well, to go to the end, because there's also a door right underneath, like the middle of that, where that deck, the existing deck ended.
There's a door underneath.
Coming out of the
Coming out of the
garage on the
coming out of
side.
the garage.
Yes,
So does that corner as it stands right now, is that right above where that door is? Or is the door further to the top of the screen?
the door is, it's in part of that and partly towards the outside.
Is it here or is it somewhere in here?
It's covers like part of the end of the deck and towards the outside.
But if you, again, without going into the details that are important that Jim has raised, if the problem is the snow that's getting in the gap, essentially extending the deck as it currently stands would just to close that gap would resolve that problem?
Yes, because I'm gonna put one of those, the systems underneath it to keep the water from coming down underneath and with a gutter system to take it away.
If you shifted it to the right, up against the garage, would you still have access from the slider?
Not if I like physically shifted it over, because this is probably maybe 2 feet away from the edge of the door.
But I mean, it doesn't slide the entire width of that door, does it? In other words, if you're in the living room and you go out the slider, does it slide from the right side to the left?
It slides from the right side over, and then there's another side here that slides over to the middle. They both slide into the middle.
Okay.
Plus you get your railing system.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Ms. McGrath, I'm looking at a plan you had drawn by DLR that shows a 16 by 16 deck on top of the existing garage.
It's Xed out now, Jim.
Right, that I eliminated that.
So, well,
I had a
what
new
I'm
site
getting
plan.
at is, a deck can go up there, that's already lot coverage, correct?
It is already lot coverage.
All right, so, did you ever figure out the?
Yes.
Okay, can we go there?
Yes. So the dwelling, as it currently exists, is approximately 1,760 square feet.
Yeah.
But the maximum allowable lot coverage at 20% is 1,655. So his dwelling, without including his deck or his shed, his dwelling itself is already over the allowable lot coverage at 20%.
So without that, without that deck, he's 61 square feet over.
Yes, and what that means with regard to the ordinance is that he's not, the property isn't eligible for the 15% deck exemption because it's already over the allowable lot coverage. It as an R20 at 20%.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for figuring that out, Jim. What's the size of the existing shed? Do you know?
12 by 8, 96 square feet.
Do you need that shed?
Right now I have stuff in it, but I could get rid of it. Because that stuff is,
Well, that would bring him under.
I'm not counting the shed.
Oh, you're not counting the shed?
No,
Okay.
the
You're
dwelling.
no fun.
That's true.
Oh. All right. Well. Obviously, there has to be access to those, that slider and that walk door. Steve, how should we handle this as far as, I know you hate when I go down this road and stuff.
No, I understand. If Mr. McGrath, I don't know if Mr. McGrath has any photos of the condition of the deck that might help the building official prior to it being demolished. That might assist the building official in any determination like that.
I don't know if I have any on my phone now, but I know my son would probably have some, and I also, the contractor that took it down, I don't know if he's got pictures, but.
Yeah, would a contract, would someone with a license be able to?
Yeah, I mean, I could accept an affidavit from the contractor attesting to the condition, along with any photos that they may have.
Yep.
Okay.
That would help that problem out.
That would, yeah, right. So, Mr. McGrath, you're gonna have to provide the board with and the building official with an affidavit from your contractor and any pictures, anything you can do to support the condition of that deck that's.
Sure, okay.
And I would also, if I were you, just give some thought to putting the deck over the garage and coming up with a way to access it from those. To access it from the slider and the other door in that living room area.
Right, I almost have to have like a long gangplank then over.
Right.
I just didn't, besides,
Well, I'm not telling you I have to do that, but
oh,
I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah, no, I
I'm
understand.
just, I would give it some fill-up,
Right, okay,
because the area above your garage is already counted as lot coverage. So you can put a deck up there, and you don't need any relief from us for that.
right,
Obviously, you're gonna need some relief no matter what you do.
right.
It's just the extent of it. So, if you can get that, information, I would gladly continue this to the next meeting.
Right, okay,
I don't see any reason why we can't do that.
right. Yeah, I'll get pictures and some kind of affidavit from the contractor to you, I'll drop it, I'll get to you right away.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. Is that based upon him rebuilding the existing deck, or?
I don't know what, it all depends what he comes back with, right? I mean,
All right.
I don't even know if we're there yet.
Okay.
But yeah, if it was obviously, if he had to take it down because it was structurally, unsound, and you have the affidavit, he could rebuild the
Yes.
in-kind or current deck.
Right,
That doesn't solve the snow problem,
right, right. That's a whole nother issue, so.
or the 2 feet. Is that correct, Mr. McGrath? So,
It's approximately 2 feet, yeah, it's the snow, the water, everything just gets in that corner and just does damage.
So any increase beyond the existing, he's gonna come back before the board if he so chooses.
Yeah, I have to, right? But I mean, if you're satisfied, I guess if you're satisfied with the affidavit, with what Mr. McGrath gives you, as far as I'm concerned, that he wants to rebuild it the way it was.
Then we're fine.
There's no, we're fine, right, Steve? Or is there a,
yeah, correct. He could rebuild it the way it was, but he's requesting additional relief.
Yes.
for this,
yeah,
Which would, again,
The relief is more than just the 2 feet though, because it's
well, it's an extension of.
it's an extension
yes.
of the
No,
deck,
there's no-
beyond just the 2 feet.
Right. Julie, you look like you have something to,
No,
no? Okay.
no.
All right,
yep.
Steve, if we're gonna continue this, I don't need to ask for, opponents or proponents at this point.
No, you don't, but
Is there anyone
Anyone
in
here?
the public that would like to speak on this before we close this matter for the evening? Okay. So Chair would entertain a motion, Heidi, what's, April 20th?
Your agenda, you have 2.
No, I don't care about the agenda, we're gonna put it on regardless.
Oh, okay.
I'm just checking the date.
Oh, April 20th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move that it be continued to April 20th.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded to move this to a date certain of April 20th. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries 5-0.
Thank
See
you.
you next month.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, Mr. Zangari's here, so we'd have to adjourn as the zoning board,
Okay,
reconvene as the plating board,
all right.
and then
Chair,
we can call this
Chair would entertain a motion that we adjourn as the zoning board.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. All right. Now we're sitting at the planning board review. Heidi, we can call the roll, please.
Yes. Alan Cornell,
Present.
Thomas Callahan,
Here.
Keith Kyle,
Here.
Christopher Ullman,
Here.
Joseph Paglia,
Absent with cause.
Anthony Brunetti,
Absent with cause.
James Manning.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 members present.
Oh, great. Thank you, Heidi.
So, for the members of the board who don't know him, this is Christopher Zangari. Good evening. Chris is a new appointee under Mark Davis for the town of Narragansett. He's going to be sitting as your attorney tonight, and I'm going to be representing the planning board.
Okay, excellent. So this evening, we've got an appeal from D. Simone, plat R-1, lot 155, located at Sunset Boulevard. It's an appeal of the conditions of the approval for a minor subdivision, preliminary plan approval, issued by the planning board. Mr. D. Simone, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Zingari. A little background.
Douglas, please be sworn.
No, we don't, we're not taking testimony, it's really legal arguments.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Just a little background for the board. This parcel was part of the estate of my father. My father passed away 10 years ago, Thanksgiving. The parcel is owned in common by my brother and I, Herb, who's here, who's also, I guess, representing the both of us, but he doesn't have any objection to this lot. It's not a corporation, so we don't have to have a lawyer. So Herb and I have decided that we wanted to separate the parcel. We're very fortunate in our family. Everybody gets along, 3 children. And the reality is owning property together can sometimes be a recipe for disaster. Things can happen. I can pass away. He has children. I have children. Who knows? We thought it best that we separate it. He owns one. I own the other. Simple. Draw a line in the sand. Well, it hasn't been simple. It's been going on for 2.5 years. Okay. So this shows the division. The division is conformed in all aspects of the zoning ordinance. The lots are larger than they need to be, they're deeper than they need to be, they're wider than they need to be, and they have more frontage than they need. They also, more frontage. They also have significantly more upland than is required. So, we submitted the plan. It's a minor subdivision with no street creation. There are public utilities at the street, town water. The curb stops are stubbed in for both lots. There's electricity at the street, and both of the lots are within the sewer district approved by the town council. The town engineer has in fact improved the design, which we did at great expense, which was going to service the entire plat. I don't know, is it possible to get a bigger overhead where we show the whole plat down there? We're going to pick up all of these, pick up all of that. Council approved it, it's in the sewer district. So when we got to the planning board, there were conditions that had been suggested. The planning board did take one of them out. That was that if we didn't develop the property within such a time frame, then no approvals would lapse. That was taken out. There was conversation about all the proposed conditions. One of the proposed conditions was that the lot not be further subdivided. At the time of the hearing, I said, we have no plans to do anything here. We just don't even have any development plans right now, so we're okay with that one. Let's just get rid of the rest of them. As it turned out, the planning board adopted the rest of the conditions, and we have now taken appeal from all of them. It is our position that these conditions provide no protection for the town at all. It's merely a recitation or regurgitation of existing law. You can't build on them without a building permit. Of course not. We have a zoning official. It is his job to enforce the building code of the state of Rhode Island and the zoning ordinance of the town of Narragansett. It is not within the purview of the planning board to impose conditions on the property that have to do with compliance of zoning and building regulations. It's not the planning board's duty. The planning board should be involved in imposing conditions in a subdivision where an applicant has asked for a waiver. We've asked for no waivers. The typical conditions that you see imposed by planning boards throughout the state, have to do with open space, the use of open space. Should there be a negative covenant? That's a typical condition, it's something that we see all the time, and is completely and entirely appropriate by the planning board. There should be conditions about placement of open space markers. There should be conditions about placement of drainage structures, protection of abutting neighbors. Those are things that the planning board should be concerned with. The planning board should not be concerned with making sure that we don't re-subdivide this. So long as we comply with the law at the time that we make an application, that's it. These conditions will run with the land in perpetuity. They're there forever. It may be that my brother and I never do anything with this. It may be one of our children. It may be a third person who we don't even know. But this condition is there, and it's there forever. So let's say, for example, that the town, in its wisdom, determines that the zoning down here should change. You've got property that has access to water and sewer. We have a real significant shortage of affordable housing in town. Maybe the town adopts an ordinance which would allow for the development of another house lot down there. We don't know. Might happen 10 years from now, might happen tomorrow. But with this condition, we could never take advantage of that. So what we're saying is, these conditions, all they do is devalue the property. They're inappropriate. And so long as we comply with the law, we should be able to comply with the law as it exists from time to time. He's casting the law in stone today. The planning board doesn't make the law. The town council makes the law, and the legislature makes the law, not the planning board. And that's our position. So we would like the conditions to be lifted, and in doing that, we want to impress that, again, we've asked for no waivers. The lots are conforming in every aspect, bigger than they need to be, more frontage, wider, deeper, and more upland. They're in the sewer district, they have town water at the street. Why do these lots have conditions? You should have none. If you come in total compliance with the zoning ordinance, why are you putting conditions on our property that run with the land and devalue it? And that's our position. Thank you.
Yes.
Doug,
Mr.
Oh,
DeSimone.
they get
Sure, sorry.
Mr. DeSimone,
Yeah.
one question. And I think the points you made were very salient, but can you address for a moment, when we're sitting, when the zoning board is sitting as a board of appeals, it seems that our review is highly constrained.
I agree with
It's prejudicial procedural error, clear error, or lack of support of the weight of the evidence. So can you
that. Mr.
address
Zangari
that
did
for
a
us,
nice
please?
job. Very good job. No, I completely agree with that, but I think at the same time, that was my brief, not your brief. Steve, very good brief. But I would note that his brief did not address the underlying issue, which is that the planning board overstepped its authority. They imposed conditions on this property which will devalue it and will run in the land forever, provide no protection to the town, other than existing law. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna reprint the zoning ordinance and attach that as a condition to everybody who comes to the subdivision? Think of it. What did these conditions do for the town?
So are you saying that's the clear error?
Absolutely correct.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Absolutely correct. Thank you.
Mr. DeSimone, your concern over, obviously, number one,
Yep.
is, I find that, that's, to me, is a major stumbling block. But your opposition to two, these are the conditions, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that's pretty much boilerplate, and
I would say it's boilerplate in my experience in this town. I haven't seen it in others.
well, I'm only going with this
Right,
town.
it's highly irregular, because it's completely and totally, it's superfluous. It adds nothing. All it does is stay with the land forever, and clouds title. It adds, it does not, does that provide any protection in town? No. Why are you mucking up people's title with language which adds nothing? Could that land be developed without a building permit? No. If it's gonna have septic systems, they have to be designed and approved, yes. Does the town have any jurisdiction over the wetlands on the property? No, not anymore. So, what are we doing? We're just muddying up people's title to make, I don't know, I honestly don't understand the reason for it. Because there is none, and again, just in my experience, I haven't seen this done in other communities. Because it's unnecessary. It's meaningless. It's actually meaningless. It's feel-good language, it's meaningless. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not yet, not at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Eastmo.
All right, so Stephen Marcello for the Town of Narragansett Planning Board. I took probably a little bit extra time than I should have in my brief, because I wanted you to have the planning board's position in writing. As you can see, me and Mr. DeSimone have essentially two different views of the planning board's role in this. The planning board has to make 6 findings of fact. One of the findings of fact is that the lot is in fact buildable. It was the opinion of Mr. DeLuca that these conditions were necessary in order for the planning board to make a decision that on number 4, that the lot was in fact buildable. You saw in the transcript, again, you cannot substitute your judgment for the judgment of the planning board, that there was substantial back and forth between Mr. DeSimone, Mr. DeLuca, and members of the planning board regarding the buildability and, in fact, number 4, which is that they had to make the finding that the lot is in fact buildable, because Mr. DeSimone obviously didn't want to show that it's going to be maintained for open space, etc. So it either has to be maintained for open space, or it has to be found to be a buildable lot, because the town of Narragansett can't create a lot that isn't in fact buildable. So that was really the crux of what went back and forth at the planning board level. In my brief, and again, I disagree, Mr. DeSimone specifically agreed to condition number 1. It's in the record. I asked him, he said he agreed, and that was one of the bases for me essentially advising the board on the other conditions. So, you know, he then appeals the decision and says, well, I agreed to it, but I really didn't agree to it. Now I'm appealing my own I'm appealing my own decision, essentially, because that was important at that level, that that the lots not further be subdivided. And had he not agreed to it at that time, I might have given different legal advice to the planning board. But it was agreed to at the time. As I said in my brief, he had these both Mr. DeSimone's had these conditions 5 weeks in advance. They could have brought any experts in they wanted. They did not bring in any experts regarding septic. You know, Mr. DeSimone had the soil map book, and he was waving it around and telling us how the soils, as you saw, I believe it's on page 17, the condition of the soils are no problem, they can build a house there. Well, the book wasn't entered into the record. There wasn't an expert testifying about the soils. And it was Mr. DeLuca's opinion that that these conditions were needed in order to, conditions 2 through 4 were needed in order to be able to grant the approval without additional information on that second lot. On the first lot, they had, Mr. DeSimone had all the appropriate approvals needed, and that's not an issue. And that's why it was, the conditions were only really targeted toward that second lot. And it was on that basis that the board put those conditions in. And as you saw in my brief, in the original recommendation by Mr. DeLuca, there were 7 conditions. They went through those 7 conditions, cut it down to 5, and really reworked the wording on every one of those conditions. So, you know, I would contend that the planning board did not make any clear error by imposing these conditions on the DeSimone lot. And in fact, again, diligently went through every condition, even the wording in some of these conditions, to, in my opinion, benefit the applicant to grant the approval without the additional information that Mr. DeLuca thought was necessary on the second lot, and you know, move the application along. As a counter to Mr. DeSimone's argument is, if he needs to, on conditions 2, 3, and 4, if you need to get those anyway, then how is it clear error to put those in the decision? It's not clear error at all. It's a matter of fact, it's legally correct, and it doesn't impose any additional conditions that already don't exist. So by placing 2, 3, and 4 in the decision, it allowed the planning board to determine that the lot was in fact buildable, to safeguard that the lot was in fact buildable, and it again doesn't impose any other conditions that aren't, I agree with that aren't already in the law. So it was the juxtaposition of the planning board's necessity to find that the lot is buildable with the lack of information. There were no professionals there. There were no experts there. It was just Mr. DeSimone's eloquent discussion, which, as I said in my brief, that covers, you know, is not legally binding on the planning board. He's just a lay witness, whether he's acting as a developer or as the owner, but he is not an expert regarding soil samples or a condition of the property. So, not to belabor this, I believe my brief was pretty substantive, but that it clearly wasn't, there was no clear error in placing conditions 2, 3, and 4. I don't believe, no one's contesting condition number 5, and that the applicant agreed to condition number 1, and you know, and therefore I don't think, based on equitable estoppel or, you know, basic principles, that you cannot agree to something and then appeal what you agreed to. So that's on condition number 1. Those would be the basis for upholding condition number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, no one's contesting 5. 5 would stay no matter what.
So Steve, I guess what the stumbling block for me is the fact that you've got 13 acres of land zoned R80 in a sewer district, right? Does the planning board have the right to limit the number of structures, at this point, can they, well, let's take, Lot B has more upland, and could possibly support 2 houses. Do they have the legal right to tell somebody that they can't, if they can prove that they could put 2 houses on that lot? Do they have the legal right to tell them that they can't?
Well, in answer to that, I would say that the applicant came in with a two-lot subdivision and did not bring in any experts to prove otherwise. And that was
No, but not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
And I understand that Mr. D. Simone agreed to the condition of number one. And I clearly saw that. But my question is, generically, can they do that as a board? Can they legally do that?
Can they impose a condition
So if I,
that that the subdivision not be further subdivided?
yes. If it meets all the zoning
If
requirements.
it meets all the zoning requirements.
And that's the issue that I'm having with this.
Correct. And it would depend on the physical constraints of the lot, and I believe that's what Mr. DeLuca was talking about in his reasoning for that condition, was the potential physical constraints of the lot. Now, could the applicant come in, in other words, if the zoning changed, then that would be a change of circumstances, a change of law, and the applicant could certainly come in and ask for a change.
So, let's just go down the line a little bit. Let's say this condition one was accepted and went forward, and they decided to do some development, and they realized that Lot B could support 2 houses, Lot A could support 2 houses.
They would have to come back in with a new application and request either as a modification of the current application. They certainly could do that based upon expert testimony, and they in fact could prove that the lots could further be subdivided. So they could say, I'll give a prime example. Septic systems a long time ago couldn't support certain lots. And there were always restrictions on those lots. Now with the new bottomless filter, those lots are now developable. That's a change in technology, and those applicants need to come back either before DEM, before coastal, before the town, and based upon the new technology, then those quote-unquote unbuildable lots then become buildable. And again, that was the crux of Mr. DeLuca's issue, and why the planning board put condition number 1 on there is the finding that it was in fact buildable.
Isn't the D. Simone's argument that the way condition number 1 is worded, that they could not come back for any further subdivision, period? And that means they couldn't seek a modification of the existing subdivision. And I think that's the crux of their concern, is that this is going to be recorded, I would imagine, against the title to their 2 lots. And
Correct.
It says no
it's already
further
done.
subdivisions.
So my answer to that is they're both sophisticated, very sophisticated builders and attorneys. They had this language either 5 or 9 weeks in advance. They agreed upon the language at the time of the hearing. Now, I don't necessarily disagree that, perhaps the language may have issues to it, but it's not this board's charge to make that. In other words, as long as it wasn't clear error, this board cannot overturn the planning board. It's clearly not procedural error, and it's not error of law. So if it's not clear error, then this board can't overturn the planning board. That would be my argument to it.
I guess that's where I'm hung up, is that
Yeah.
is it clear error for a planning board to impose a condition that notwithstanding the grant of a minor subdivision, which this was, that there can be no further subdivision ever in the future. I mean, we don't know what the, as they pointed out, what their sons or daughters or whatever want to do with the property 20, 30 years from now. Maybe they want to put, as Jim said, 2 or 3 house lots on there. I think that's,
I mean,
Chris, that's the question we're having, I think.
that's my question.
Yeah, so you.
Do they have the legal right to limit the development on that property?
Sure.
As a planning board?
You have your, okay.
This, and I don't think what I'm gonna say is that it's really not germane to the issue of the appeal. But separate from that, what I would say is, Mr. Doug DeSimone made a statement that this is gonna run with the land forever. I would disagree to a point. It does run with the land. But what happens is, if the zoning law changed, you would come back, as Mr. Marcellus stated, and say, the law changed, therefore my rights have changed, my development rights have changed, and therefore you could come back and further subdivide, as long as you met the criteria. So it is not as if this is forever. But I would contend that it would be a restriction if zoning didn't change. But if there was a substantial change in the circumstances, technology, the law changed, something changed on the land, I don't know, it became dry or became wet, or something changed, substantial change, you could come back and say, because of the change in circumstances, we find that this is now ripe, or at least eligible, for subdivision. And they would come back before the Planning Commission and seek that relief. So I don't think it's forever. I think it's restrictive, but it is no. I wouldn't say it's forever. But having said all of that, it's still your charge tonight is not to substitute your judgment for the Planning Board, the Planning Commission. You can't do that.
Well, I don't think we are. I think we're asking, is it clear error for them to have done that? I mean, that's not substituting our judgment for them. That's what the law says our review standard is. Is that clear error?
And maybe the question is, was the planning board's determination that they had the ability to determine, and the duty, right, and the charge, to make sure that that second lot, right, we're talking about one lot, not the other, that the restrictions on the second lot were warranted because they didn't have enough information to make the decision. Maybe that clarifies the point for you? I don't know.
But, Chris, it's still, my question is, as a board, do they have clearly you have more than enough square footage to do more than a single house on each. And first of all, we're only talking about a subdivision of land. There's no proposed for any building, any construction or anything. So it's a simple subdivision of land. As a board, can they tell the DeSimones that you have 6 acres here, 6 acres here, each in an 80,000 square foot zoning area? Buildable lots, because it's in a sewer. You've got verified water tables for ISDSs. You've got, it's in a sewer district, already approved by the town council.
Yes.
So they're buildable lots. I just don't see how the board can limit the number of dwelling. I mean, if they can go in and meet the existing zoning, if they could prove they could put 2 houses on each one, how can the planning board tell them they can't put 2 houses? I mean, to me, that's clear error.
Then you sharpen the issue, right? So your determination, I think, would be, is it clear error on the part of the planning board to take the position that we've got to make the determination that these lots are buildable, right? And because we don't have enough information, we can't make that determination, therefore we're putting this condition. If you determine that that's clear error, then you would find that there's clear error.
Well, I think there's no question that, I mean, they're in a sewer district. God knows why that entire plat is in sewer. I mean, everybody talks about water quality. I mean, I know that's a whole other issue, but clearly they're buildable lots. Steve?
Well, and you say clearly, the planning board had one person, or had town staff that didn't say clearly. In the record, Mr. DeLuca was questioning the buildability of the second lot. And in order to approve the subdivision, they needed to somehow, like, compromise sometimes makes bad law, because one of the other way to go about it would be to say to DeSimone's is, prove to us that it's buildable. Bring in your experts, bring in your soil person, bring in your, get all the approvals, and then none of these conditions would essentially exist, because you have proven to the board that that second lot is buildable. The board had the information from staff, and you saw the discussions going back and forth with Mr. DeLuca and Mr. DeSimone, and the board accepted the opinion of the town planner who reviewed so it wasn't clearly, that's really kind of the crux of the whole argument, was while Mr. DeSimone was making the argument, he didn't bring in any extra information, and they could have at any point brought in, we could have, Scott Rabideau and everyone here, and Ed Pimentel and the whole gang, and they would have been able to prove that the lot was buildable, and then none of these conditions would have existed. It's as simple as that. I agree with Ms. DeSimone, these conditions are superfluous, but not in this case, because in this case they didn't have enough information, and they took the opinion of Mr. DeLuca that they needed, in order to make the positive finding on number 4 that it's buildable, they needed to put these conditions on there. That's really the crux of it.
So, I understand that part of the argument. Assuming that is the case, which I agree with, could the condition have been crafted in a way that only the lot that was in question could not be subdivided, and those findings still have been made, satisfying the concern that was present at the planning? In other words, there was no issue with respect to one of the lots.
Yes, possibly.
I have a procedural question, Chris. So, as Steve cited in his brief, the subdivision regulations indicate that if the board overturns a decision of the planning board, the proposed project application shall be remanded to the planning board at the stage of processing from which the appeal was taken. What does that mean? Does that mean they go back and have another shot at making their arguments with respect to the subdivision, or it's less intensive at that point of review?
It gets remanded back. Excuse me. For final disposition, and that disposition's got to be consistent with your decision.
Yeah, so if you were to reverse and direct the planning board to issue a preliminary approval, let's just say without condition number 2, it would go back and with that direction, almost like when a Supreme Court sends it back to the lower court, and they give specific directions. So it would have to go back basically for procedural.
Because only planning has the authority to grant that relief.
Correct.
You can send it back to them to do it, but they have to do it.
And the planning board would then issue another decision which would supersede that. Again, say you eliminated number 2, it would be an approval with 4 conditions at your direction.
So it's not an opportunity for the planning board to re-examine the issue with respect to the...
It would not be, because again, you're just making findings based upon the record. The only time it would go back and would be, and I know Alicia can't testify, we didn't have a stenographer there. If the record was so incomplete, and you saw some gaps in there because we only have tape. Now we have YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and watch it. But back then we didn't. So if the record was so unclear that you really couldn't make a decision, you could remand it for another hearing. But it would be on that basis. In my opinion, it would be on that basis, not on not on just giving them a shot.
So I still haven't gotten a satisfactory answer as far as if the board can take a piece of property that meets the zoning requirements, just for the sake of argument, for 2 houses and limited to a single. If it's deemed a buildable lot.
I'm thinking, meaning,
Well,
I mean,
obviously, it wouldn't be at this point if they didn't agree that they were buildable lots, correct? Correct?
no. See, that's the whole
No,
point. Yeah.
No, but hasn't the planning board made the determination that they're buildable lots?
Because of the conditions that they put forth on their decision. If those conditions weren't there because of the lack of information provided and the lack of experts at the previous hearing, then they could, the other route, as I put in my, I don't want to go through this, but the other route is if they didn't feel that they could find that the second lot was buildable, based upon the information provided by Mr. DeSimone with the experts there, they would have to deny the subdivision because you need to make positive findings on all 5 or 7. And that was the compromise has us here. The planning board wanted to approve it because it's a kind of a regular, it's a 2-lot subdivision.
Based on that reasoning, I agree with conditions 2 through 4 because they're actually superfluous. I mean, they would have to get all of those things allowed or granted, as they say, 2 through 4 to build on those lots anyways. And so I agree with you on that. I'm still hung up as Jim is on 1 because that doesn't seem to serve any real purpose other than to, at least in my mind, it seems pretty unambiguous to me. It says no further subdivision. So I guess the question that is can the planning board do that? Can they say under no circumstances can you further subdivide this property?
So, I mean, I'll allow Mr. DeSimone on that. I'm sure there are conditions. Again, I've been standing up here for 31 years, but I would have to get back to you, obviously, with these appeals, usually they're in writing and they have to be continued anyway. I certainly would be able to ask if I could do some legal research on that, whether the planning board can, can grant that condition, and certainly get back, and have Mr. DeSimone get back to you also. But I don't, off the top of my head, I would be lying if I could give you a direct answer on that.
I mean, that's why I think 2 through 4 makes sense, right? Because they're not buildable. They just divided into 2 separate lots, and they'd have to go through all of the whatever was building permits and everything else to get it. But number 1 still is the. I mean, I think you get where we're.
Yeah, no, I understand, and certainly, it's been in their family for 10 years. I don't think another month would matter. But I would get back to you in writing on that sole issue.
So
Yeah.
I understand 2 through 4 because they needed those conditions to be able to make the determination they had to make that the lot as subdivided was buildable. So I get 2 through 4. 1, I just kind of wish they actually had the wording differently. I think rather than being an absolute no further subdivision, you know, everyone's saying that you can always come back if the law changes, so maybe remanding it to them to revise that condition, I don't know if this is even legally permitted or possible, but to say something like, you know, unless zoning laws change, no further you know, there's something, because that seems to be what everybody seems to be saying anyway. You know, that there's, under present law, no more further subdivision is allowed, but things could change. So I just feel that the language could have been a little bit better from the planning board on that.
Steve,
Yes.
just, did I hear, and do I understand this correctly, that these conditions, it was the intention of the planning board that these conditions apply to Lot B only?
Lot, stop me if I'm wrong, is Lot A.
Whichever lot is,
Yeah, there was one lot that had, I believe, in Mr. DeLuca's opinion, that on one of the lots, they had everything they needed. So the buildability wasn't an issue.
right, and so the future subdivision of that lot was not an issue either. Is that correct?
Of the lot with the approval?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so, okay. So, I guess my concern, my issue is, if this had been written more clearly, and the world's full of this, but if this had been written more clearly that these conditions applied only to Lot B, we may or may not still be here tonight on this issue. Right?
Well, on 2, 3, and 4, but I think it's number 1 is
Right.
still being issued. So I believe the appeal would have just been to number 1, which again, I go back to,
No, I get, no.
we have sophisticated
I got
applicants
you, so,
who had these 9 weeks in advance,
right,
who did not object to it.
right. I got that.
Steve, I understand that part, but to me, it's still, seems heavy-handed by the board to limit the amount of development, whether anyone agreed to it or not. That's the issue that I have. And nobody has satisfactorily answered that. I mean, obviously, you're going to do some research on it, if the board has the right to do that. I mean, obviously, if they choose to develop this property and they went forward and found out that they can only support one lot, in one dwelling, then so be it. But to me, it seems very heavy-handed.
My response to that is you're not supposed to substitute your judgment for the judgment of...
No, but exactly, which I'm not. But do they have? I'm asking, do they have the right?
And
to
I
do
will.
it?
And
That's the only. I mean, yeah.
I will certainly get back to you, with the law, and I don't know if get something to Mr. Zangari,
I have one outstanding question.
Sure.
Can we get Mr. D. Sloan back?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can share the photo. Go ahead, Steve. Yes.
I think I heard you testify that the family has no plans to re-subdivide any of this. Is that correct?
That is correct right now, yes.
Okay. So what happened between the meeting and the appeal that caused you to essentially say, I agreed to one, but now in retrospect,
Okay.
I've got a problem?
I'd be happy to address that. To fully understand what happened at the meeting, you're reading a transcript and you're reading a brief, a very well-written brief again. You have to understand that there were other conditions which were also suggested. One of which included a provision that if we didn't take action to go ahead and put houses on here and develop it, and I think within a number of years, the approval would lapse. The subdivision would magically disappear. And my brother and I would be left in the situation which we are in now, where, again, we're very close and we get along great. We just don't want to own the property together, because we have children. It's a family decision. It's part of estate planning. It's common sense. All we wanted to do was draw a line in the sand. okay? So I'm faced at this hearing, and again, Steve was quite correct. Those conditions were proposed some 9 weeks in advance. I would take issue with the fact that they were proposed because we didn't bring any experts. At the time they were proposed, no one knew that we weren't going to bring any experts. I would also suggest that there was no reason to bring experts. The plans that were submitted included soil table tests, water table tests, deep hole pits, which Mr. DeLuca required us to do, even though the Rhode Island DEM does not require for a two-lot subdivision on existing road fronts, they do not require subdivision suitability. So we went and did the water table tests because he asked us to do them. We did it, we provided them. They were done by our engineer. Then he said he wanted them witnessed by the state. We had the state come out and witness them. That was all done. This whole issue of whether or not these lots are buildable, which therefore would support these conditions, I think is a red herring. I really do. If you look at all the conditions that were proposed, especially the one that would magically make the subdivision disappear, it almost looks like there's ill will involved. It's that bad. And I think the planning board was absolutely correct in getting rid of 2 of the conditions. But as far as our agreement to condition 1, we're there. We don't want this to go on. It's been going on for 2 years, or however long. We just want to get it over with. So when asked, do you have objection to this condition? Well, you know, if you're going to get rid of this other stuff where it disappears, yes. So there was really a kind of a negotiation going on. That's my answer to Steve. I don't know if that's clear in the transcript, but that's what was happening. So it's not a blanket consent to that condition at all. I was trying to be a gentleman and move the thing forward. But I would strongly suggest to you that Steve is incorrect when he says the planning board imposed those conditions because there was concern about buildability. Those conditions were proposed, and because there were no experts, those conditions were proposed long before they knew that I wasn't going to present an expert. And the reason there wasn't an expert there was because it's not necessary. We did everything that was asked of us. We went out and did the water tables. The soil map that Steve is talking about is the Rhode Island Soil Survey. The subdivision plan has a soil map on it, and it indicates that the soils are ridge-bearing, whatever they are. And the planning board certainly knows that those soils are suitable for community development, and they can take notice of the Rhode Island Soil Survey. They deal with it every day. They deal with it every meeting that they have. And the planning department, the planning staff, the director certainly knows what those soils are. And he certainly knows that there is language in the Rhode Island Soil Survey that says these soils are suitable for community development. That's all I did. I just pointed that out as I'm pointing it out to you. And the planning board knew it. The staff, the planning director, I believe, knew it. So I think the whole issue of buildability was, it was a red herring. Trying to find a reason to throw up roadblocks to a family that just wants to settle in a state. I really didn't understand the whole conversation of buildability. You've got lots that are in the sewer district, have much more upland than is required, have soils that are suitable for community development. Why do I need to bring an expert?
So
There's no issue. The issue of buildability, just let me finish. The issue of buildability was not raised until that evening. Those conditions, there was no, when we got the notice of the conditions, there's no telling us that these conditions have anything to do with buildability. Conditions simply didn't make sense, and they were overreaching. There was one condition that would have made this subdivision magically disappear. So that was our main concern that night, was getting rid of that. And we wanted to get rid of them all.
So, just try and boil that down.
Yep.
You were okay with condition 1, but as you look, as even conditions that were eliminated that night and the other conditions that remain, cause you to go back and reflect and say, this is bad faith on the part of the planning board?
I'm not gonna call it bad faith on the part of the planning board. I don't think that at all. I think that the people on the planning board, you know, they're volunteers, they do a great job. I don't think it's on the part of the planning board at all, but I do have a question. Why would you propose a condition that would make a subdivision disappear? Why would you propose a condition?
But it was gone, but before the night
Oh,
was
no.
over, it was gone.
The planning board.
Right, before
The planning board.
Right.
Why would you propose a condition which prevents further subdivision of lots which are completely conforming? Why would you even propose that? It defies logic, to me.
But even though you agreed to it.
Don't forget the circumstances under which I said, yeah, we can go along with that. We can go along with that if you get rid of everything else. That's the message that's being sent, and everything else wasn't gotten rid of. So that's where that.
So again, it was the addition of the conditions other than one
Yes.
that caused you to say, now on reflection, we're not so good with one.
That's right.
Thank you.
I think that's exactly correct.
Thank you.
So this is where we are, and again, I think it is clear error. I think the idea that there was a question of buildability and that supported those conditions, I think is really incorrect, because those conditions were propounded 9 weeks before the hearing, and they had no knowledge that we weren't going to bring experts. And upon seeing them, quite honestly, we didn't feel the need for experts because all the information's there on the plan. It's not, and we're not proposing any development. We just, what do you need an expert for? To draw a line in the sand and say, this lot complies, they're larger than they need to be, they've got more frontage than they need to be, they've got more upland than they need to be, they've got more acreage than they need to be, they're completely conform. Why are there any conditions at all? We think it's clear error. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peaseman. Steve, I don't know if I thanked you, but thank you.
You need a motion to continue, Jim? You need a motion to continue?
Yeah, is there any more discussion needed this evening, or? No. Yes.
So do you want?
I would
Well,
like
let-
an,
let
I would
me-
like an answer to my question.
Yeah,
if I can.
and
Can get
I'll
one.
I'll provide that in writing.
Okay.
We're gonna have an opportunity to respond.
And,
Yeah, I believe the question is to both.
oh, it's to both,
both of us.
yeah, the more the merrier.
Make it work for yourself, Irving.
On that, Mr. Callahan.
Do you need a specific language to that?
No, me and her will work.
Okay. So I move that we continue this to a date certain?
Sure.
And the date certain would be what, next meeting?
Steve, what do you,
What do you recommend?
60 days.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, why don't we do 2 meetings, just because,
we'll do the May meeting?
yeah, because next month.
When is that?
Okay.
May.
June, hold on, June meeting.
I'm gonna have a problem.
June 22nd.
June 22nd? So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we continue this matter to the June 22nd, the June 22nd?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
No, you can go.
Oh, yeah.
Big one.
5 minutes?
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
We did 5.
No, that's fine. You know that.
Yeah, I'll sit here.
So we're gonna take this to
Take the party here.
Ready? Action, Jill?
Action.
I don't see any green lights up there. Which is, oh. All right. Next, final item on the agenda this evening is Emma, Tax Assessors Plat S, Lot 181. Mr. McGreen.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. So as you recall, the last time we were here, you asked us to go back and make an effort to reduce our floor area ratio request. I have Peter Bosco here tonight, who's the architect that can run you through the plan. But if you just go to the initially proposed plan that we had, the first floor and the second floor. When she's pulling that up, the main purpose for my client doing this addition is so that she can bring her mother and father to live with them. And you'll see on the lower level plan, and we'll get to the other plan, which we just finished. We've been working on this for a full month to try and do it, and we couldn't do it. We could not reduce the FAR to meet her needs in terms of putting her parents in there and getting them on the first floor. And I'll show you why. So what we did do, and we'll go to the last plan in a second, but from the first and second floor, we basically cut off that addition and just put a second floor on the existing house. So if you go to the very last one, the one I sent you, Jill, the very last one. And so here is the first floor and second floor. And you'll notice because we changed it, all the bedrooms had to go up to the second floor. By shrinking it, keep the dining room on the first floor, we had to push the bedrooms up on the second floor. This one right here, this little thing we call an office, it's only, I think it's 11 by 11 feet, not big enough for a bedroom. And you'll see the second floor up here, so that we did put all 3 bedrooms on the second floor. Again, doesn't work for her parents because now they have to walk up to the second floor. And you said, well, why don't we just flip them and put all the bedrooms on the second floor, and then we'll put the dining room on the, put all the bedrooms on the first floor and put them on the second floor. Well, that doesn't work because then the parents they still have to walk upstairs to use the dining room. So the ideal location was for that bedroom to remain on this first floor. And that's why we really couldn't, in order to meet our needs, sure, we would show you that we can reduce the FAR, but then it doesn't work for us. If she has to do this, basically she's going to have to sell the house because she cannot get her parents into this house on the first floor without making it wider off the back of the deck, off the back of the house. I do have the architect here. He can go over those plans if you have any questions as to maybe what he could do or couldn't do. Could we take those existing plans and maybe pull 6 inches or a foot off the back? Maybe we could, but to what end? It really doesn't, it doesn't do anything. This addition is on the back. Driving by the house, it's not going to look any different if we go with this plan or with the other plan. It's still going to look the same from the street side. And like I pointed out in the previous application, in our previous presentation, is that when you go down the house, I came up with a count where we're an average, lot area to finished area, we're at 48%. We're right within the neighborhood. But with that being said, I have the architect here. If you want to bring him up, if you have any questions to see what he maybe could do. Other than removing that entire back addition in order to reduce the FAR. I went through all of the applications before this application, and I know each application stands on its own. The one was a 68 square foot mudroom that you approved. The other 2 that were asking for more, 200 or 300 feet, were denied because when they testified, they said, yeah, we could do that. And that would be, I could live with that because that would meet my needs. That's what their testimony was. My client has testified, it doesn't work for her. Cannot do it, will have to sell the house and find another place to live if she can't get the relief requested. With that being said, I do have the architect here, but that's our position, that we need the space.
So Jack,
We need the relief.
you're basically, we're in the same position as we were
Yes,
when we left.
yes.
Okay.
But we did want to show you the reason why, so you visually see it, the way you really just can't shift. You know, if you shrink it, bedrooms go upstairs, and then it just doesn't work.
Well, the architect is here, so.
Yeah, he is. Is Peter Bosco?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last.
Peter Bosio, B-O-S-C-I-O.
Thank you.
Pete, would you just tell the board, what your qualifications are?
I'm a project manager for an architectural design firm. I did this for Karen as a freelance project for her. I'm the architectural designer. Been doing this for 40 years. Went to Wentworth, I have a degree in architecture.
I'd ask the board to recognize him as expert as an architect designer.
So done.
Thank you. So Peter, could you just explain to the board what you tried to do and the purpose of showing this this revised plan and why it doesn't work for the applicant?
Well, what happens in this plan is we use the existing footprint of the current house. So that 39.6 by 28, that's the actual first floor elevation, first floor footprint. We can't use the basement because it's non-compliant. Right now, there are areas of the basement, it goes from 610 to, I think, 7.1, but the majority of the floor is around 610, so it's not considered habitable. So we're negating the basement in this plan. So we're proposing the second floor. Again, this footprint sits right over the first floor. This plan falls within the FAR area, the allowable FAR area, but it does not meet Karen's parents' needs because of her parents. There's no room to put a bedroom on the first floor, similar to the earlier plans that we did. All the bedrooms have to go up on the second floor, and again, there's no room up there no way to get the parents up there. The question that we have is that right now this falls within the allowable FAR area, and it doesn't work for her. Is there any area that we could expand that allows her above the FAR to allow her to make this work? If not, it's like they've been saying to you for past I don't know how many meetings, it's not going to work.
I did ask. It looks like the stairs are here, so not feasible to convert this to a bedroom. What is this servicing right there?
That goes up. That stair goes down to the basement.
So you do
for storage.
Okay,
right.
so you can't really put a bedroom over here. And even how big would a bedroom fit, even if it could go over there? Would it be like the same size as the office on the first floor?
This space here is 13 by 25, so that's probably 13 by 12. It's half the house.
Okay. And plus you have doors here that you wouldn't be able to access the deck if you converted that to a bedroom.
I mean, there would have to be major plan changes for that to work. We'd also have to get a full bathroom for that bedroom, which would change that area around a little bit.
Karen would just like to say a few words.
She was sworn previously.
Yes.
All right, just state your name and spell your last for me.
Karen, Emma, So, I'm just gonna kind of touch on, obviously, the two things from last time where you asked about the parking, right? I think we resolved that with Wayne, that's not the issue of doing something permanent. The issue is the FAR, and you mentioned it at the end of the few hours last time. I completely understand what you guys are trying to do, and we all do. And Peter and I have literally spent a year and a half going over every options that could come up just to stay right above the house, right, with what you're allowing. It doesn't work, right? With the staircases to try and put that bedroom on the first floor. 11, at the end it got mentioned, what do you need these big bedrooms upstairs for? One on the first floor with the addition. It is 11 by 10, that office. Barely could fit, it can't fit a bed, right? It may be able to fit a bed, but it's not gonna allow for a dresser in that room. Even if we converted the living room, the stairs to go upstairs and downstairs would be blocked in some form, putting a full bathroom on that floor in the existing house. And again, we'd be in the bedroom that can barely fit around a queen bed, right? Upstairs, we made the rooms exactly whatever we could fit in there. And I have, as I've told you multiple times, 3 sons, one of which is married, soon to have a child now, one of which is, and coming from New Jersey. My second son stays with us often with his living girlfriend, and my little one is already 6 feet tall. The 2 big boys are 6'4". I barely can fit a queen bed in there and no dresser. And have shrunk the closets to whatever we could just to have bedrooms upstairs. I am, obviously, Peter and I have talked about this a lot, and I mentioned this the last time. I mean, I just had my 4th surgery on my neck. I wanted a laundry room upstairs so I don't have to go up and down the stairs because there might be a day that I can't do it. We've taken all of that out in this existing footprint, but it still doesn't work with me having my parents. And I'm gonna have no choice that they come back tomorrow and that the answer is something that is not gonna work for any of us, right? After 57 years of being here, we're trying to keep this house in the family and me to have my parents with me. And if I don't know, certainly we'd only build what addition we needed to make it happen, but no matter what, it's over the farm. This is the farm, what we've asked us to do, and Peter and I have sort of beat this to a dead horse, for lack of better words. I don't know where we go from there, right? Other than the only answer is it doesn't work. And it doesn't work for them after 57 years. And definitely isn't gonna work for me to be there with them. I would gladly put all of us on the top floor. But as we've talked about, I mean, we're 2 families. We cannot all try and sleep upstairs and have 3 other kids that comes or 2 other kids with one's wife come stay with us, and where do they go? They're 78 and 80. I know I can't pick forever, and I'm trying to certainly do the right thing and have them stay with us for the rest of their life, because it's a wonderful thing. But I wanted to show you what we've come up with of what doesn't work, because the question kept getting raised of why do you need the extra 600 square feet-ish. I think you guys figured that out, right? Why do you need it? It's the only way that it could work to get us to stay in. And we've shrunk everything else that we asked from the beginning. It's just trying to get them on that first level of being able to stay with us as a family. And I don't know what tomorrow looks like if we can't figure something out. Other than that, I have no choice but to either sell it or do something.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think that completes our presentation, Mr. Chairman. This is just, this isn't proposed.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying, this is
Yeah,
just,
we're
we're
just
just
trying
trying
to
to
show,
show
I just put that up for the purpose of showing why it doesn't work.
And why the upstairs bedrooms, when it was asked of why aren't we putting them all up there? You know, this is why we had to do what we did.
No,
I don't know what else
we
to.
certainly understand the situation.
And I know it's hard to rule on one compared to everybody else. I know my situation is unique, but.
But as she testified, this is the least relief she needs necessary in order to do what she wants to do with the property. The other applicants testified, I went to all of them and read all their testimony just to see what they were saying, I think one gentleman wanted to put storage. well, couldn't you do the storage with a 6-foot ceiling rather than a 7-foot ceiling so you could comply? Yes, well, then that's why you denied him. Understood. This is a different situation. That plan that as presented was the least relief necessary in order to get her parents into that home.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, and I do understand the unique situation. I had similar situations when I took my dad in, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. You have to, but and I'm gonna get a lot of probably shit for this, a lot of bad
It's okay.
for this. But did you consider building in an elevator?
I did, but
Okay.
that doesn't solve the problem.
Okay, because, yeah, this is, 'cause that's something that a
I
lot.
would love to do that, but that adds more square footage or takes out
Well,
the
it does it. I
problem,
mean, because sometimes
but-
you can put it in, I mean, there's really good packages now for elevators and putting them in closets and things like that, so. But I just asked, I don't know, because, and I know there's a lot of living in place, you know, aging in place designers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've actually like consulted somebody there to see, because I get it, I had to take my dad in, so I know.
Yeah.
But I understand the issues. Okay.
Excellent question.
Yeah.
No, it was-
The elevator would.
Because they're not that big, you know, and you can put them in,
The
but.
elevator would free up some floor space, but not enough to accommodate the occupancy that's used for the parents.
That's where the issue lies. And the existing house, I mean, if it helps you guys make a decision, you know, I kind of go back to this. The existing house has 3 bedrooms on that first floor, right? I mean, and it's tiny bathroom. We cannot even walk around the beds to make a bed, because they're smaller than this, obviously, right? Certainly they've aged, so it is, right now, 2 of them are in 3 bedrooms, and we sleep, like, I'm barely sleeping on the bed, in the closets and everything, if we're lucky, my sons and I. So, I just don't, in the square footage, it's the room size, living there full time, and certainly, I mean, as you know, my plan is to be a Narragansett resident, like yesterday. I can't physically get down here if I can't get them there with us.
So,
And I don't know what the answer would be, like we said.
so I don't know much about this, I know Jill or Mike. How would is it an accessory living unit? What do they call things that are built, that have some exemption?
They have to be 20,000 square feet, I believe isn't that in order to do an accessory dwelling unit under that new, it has to be 20,000 square feet, I believe.
What has to be,
The lot size in order to do an accessory separate freestanding building or something like that.
Detached.
That's
Wait,
right, is
wait.
it 20?
If it's detached.
Yeah.
Didn't the state come
It's
down with
detached.
some?
It's been changing over the last few
Yeah,
years.
so there was an accessory dwelling unit law that's passed, but that was not mandatory. It was for lots over, the town had to opt in, and it was for lots over 20,000 square feet, so that wouldn't come to this. There is multiple changes being proposed in the new package of legislation. One of the bills is the ADU law, because it was so, and it had so many errors in it, and that's pending. So I don't know what's.
We're in limbo right now.
Well, yeah, exactly, until the end of June. However, with all that said, one of the things that wasn't in Jack, because I know he introduced, there was legislation introduced to get rid of FAR, to get rid of, I mean, there's things floating everywhere, but one of the things which hasn't been proposed to be changed is that the lot size. And the thinking behind that is, well, if you want to create housing, you still need a big enough lot to create an accessory dwelling unit, even if it's alternate of zoning. But as of right now, the town of Narragansett did not opt in, and it wouldn't apply to this lot anyway.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
I mean, am I reading this right, this relief requested on here, Jill? It says 0.1% FAR variance. Is that what we're dealing with here? 0.1%.
It's not a percent.
I don't know what this is, that's why I'm asking. I don't know, it just says 0.1.
It's from the table, Ms. Kyle. And I don't have the numbers in front of me.
713 square feet.
Yeah, no, I see where it says 713 square feet, but then can you
Yes,
explain what the
I can.
0.1 means?
Let me get the table.
If you were to move the decimal point, about 10%.
So it's a 10% exceedance of
That's it.
FAR. Okay. Thank you.
Just to give you.
I get it.
That's all I was trying to
Yeah.
put it in context of, okay.
Yeah. So 10% FAR.
And the square footage is about a little over 700?
Yeah, a little over 700.
713. Exact.
I mean, are we able to consider like the intent behind this FAR statute in deciding these variances? Because this is not a situation, I think by all accounts, I don't know how everyone else feels, but this is not a situation where I don't think the FAR regulations are intended to prevent. We're trying to prevent, I believe, people putting in extra bedrooms and all this other stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of the FAR, one of the issues that FAR addressed was just the bulk massing of the houses. Another issue was obviously smaller houses, because this runs with the land. At some point, the owners will sell this house and it will go to someone else. So it had to do with the internal structure and then the massing also if you go certain parts of the town. So there would, while certainly, not to go back to that, but that was two of the main reasons
Yes, you're right.
why it was passed. Because big houses on small lots.
Is this one of the biggest FAR requests we've received? I mean, this is a
So-
lot. This is a 700 is a lot.
Yeah, so Jill and Mike can speak to that, but I can tell you that there are many requests, but only one attorney has attempted to move forward with this big of a request. So people ask. Mr. McGreen has brought it to you. Sorry. So you rested, right, Jack? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Did we ever ask for public comment? I don't want to, I mean, that.
We haven't.
We haven't, all right.
Well, no, we haven't, not yet. Oh, I mean, we did previous meeting, but, unless there's nothing you have to add right now, Mr. McGreen, I'm gonna ask for, if anyone would like, from the public, would like to address this issue.
I'd like to address an issue, but nothing to do with the house. I would like, we discussed the parking last
Excuse
time.
me, you need to, if you're gonna speak, you need to.
Yeah.
Will you didn't speak last, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, so yes, okay, I'm sorry. So you're already on the oath. Just identify yourself for the.
Linda Ekman,
Spell your last name?
EKNAIA,
Thank you.
20, we live next door, 28
Right.
Southern Drive. And I'm not gonna have anything to say about the building, but you mentioned the parking, and I don't know how you guys made out with the parking, as far as it being in the front of the house, or what you were gonna do with it. But if you had decided that you were gonna put parking in the front of the house, you had mentioned that they could still put a runway down the side. And the whole reason that I sent a letter to you guys was because they can, if they get out of their car, they're on my land. And if they're not on my land, they can't open their doors. So if they get parking in the front, which would be good, because a lot of people are trying to get parking in the front, and it makes it really easy. I don't see a point of why they should be able to have a driveway there, or make it appear to be a driveway, because eventually they'll use it it's like having extra bedrooms. Eventually they'll use it as a driveway. And then what do? Do I come to you guys? What do you do? So my point is, you had brought up the fact that you would let them continue to do that, or put in some kind of pre-pervious material there. And if they do that, it's gonna be, I mean, you make it look like a driveway, it acts like a driveway, it's gonna be used as the driveway. So that's my only point. If they're allowed to park in the front, and you allow that, then I don't see the point of having that for the driveway. And it's only because, for what I showed you, it's not for any other reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Mr. McGreen, do you have some closing comments?
No, just in terms of the parking, I know we talked about that quite a bit. And if that was a concern of the neighbor, I mean, we could have the driveway for passing and repassing only just to get to the back, and perhaps put a couple of parking spaces in the backyard, rather than making that as a condition. If you were to approve this, making that as a right to pass and repass, but not to park. So we could have parking in the front, just not for parking purposes, but to perhaps get to some spaces in the back of the house. That was-
Well, that's actually what I had talked
Yes.
about at the last meeting.
Yeah, and we didn't, we don't have a
I
problem
mean,
with
it certainly isn't fair to park and then stuff, you know,
Right.
go travel on the neighbor's property.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGreen. Is there anyone else have anything to say about this? Other than,
I just have a question for Jill. So, Jill, with respect to the parking, if we were to decide that parking in the front, if we were able to grant the request with respect to parking in the front, but do, as Mr. McGreen said, and place a restriction that the parking along the side of, the driveway along the side of the house is for passing or repassing only, they would, I believe, need additional parking in the back. Is that true?
Well,
To meet the requirement? square
as a
footage requirement.
four-bedroom dwelling, they only need 800 square feet of parking. They're proposing 1,500 and change.
Right, but that includes the parking along the side of the house right now, is that?
It includes essentially the entire front yard and the extended parking all the way down.
So if we were to indicate in a decision that they cannot park along the side of the house, would there be sufficient parking in the front?
It depends on how much you're restricting. We would have to measure that. And if they were proposing parking in the rear, we would want to see that delineated. You'd want to have a revised site plan potentially that says it's for pass and repass only. If the parking is proposed to change, it would need to be shown on a plan.
anyone else? All right, Chair would entertain a motion that we close this public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. This public hearing is closed. In regards to Emma, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we continue it for a written decision.
Okay.
since you closed it, we have a certain period of time to give that decision.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Unless Mr. McGreen, if the applicant would agree to allow.
You need a week to write the decision?
Right before they get off the board.
So in other words, to agree to waive the 15 days and allow 30, because when's the next hearing?
April 20th.
So that's, yeah, 20 days.
You won't be here.
Yeah, we gotta have,
But we only need 4.
well, we need the same, we would need, this started under the old rules.
Oh, this did, okay.
The 25th.
Oh, yeah, we can, oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna be here on that.
You're not here the 25th, Tony?
Jill just pointed out one of my weaknesses, which is Robert's rules. I believe the same board on the same night can make a motion to reopen.
To reconsider?
Reconsider, motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider. So, Mr. Chairman, I move reconsider the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I had to get a vote.
That's all right. That's fine with me. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. This is,
Now,
we have now reopened this public hearing.
and I would make a motion to continue the meeting to a date certain to be picked and momentarily to consider a written decision.
All right, what
So-
date are we looking at?
I'm going both April dates. I just happen to be going for week the 18th to the 25th, so.
Could I make a small suggestion? Will all 5 of you be here for the April 25th special meeting?
No.
I will not be here.
Tom will
I will
not.
not be here. I'm leaving the 18th and coming back the 25th, I'm sorry, can't be home.
Oh,
So it'll be May 18th.
What's the date in May?
May 18th.
I'll be here.
So to May 18th.
I'll second that. Is that a motion?
That was just the date, we're just waiting for the date, so
Oh.
that's all.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that motion carries 5-0. So,
A written
this is down
decision
for
on,
decision.
down for
only
decision only on May 18th.
On May 18th. I
Will the
apologize.
writing come earlier?
No.
And Steve, what's the procedure, is a written decision circulated as part of the board materials?
No.
Hearing's open.
Yeah, no, the hearing's open, so, we could do like we could do last time, and I believe last time we had written, no, so it wouldn't be circulated. We would, whoever makes the motion would make a make a motion, it would be seconded, and we would have to, the board would have to discuss that motion at that point. You could have competing motions like we did last time,
Mhm.
because we don't want to violate any open meetings laws.
Okay.
Yeah, so who would like to undertake writing the motion? Or motions?
Yeah, you don't need to determine that, you can,
No?
nope, you can
Okay.
come with all 5 if you wish. Whatever you want to.
I can't.
No, I.
Robert's rule. Okay. All right, is there anything else this evening?
Minutes.
Reports,
Does the minutes go up?
no.
Minutes.
Any reports from staff?
Anything, Jill? Nothing?
Nothing this evening.
But I may not have to be.
Oh, did we have minutes? Did they do the minutes?
No, they haven't done them yet.
You haven't done the minutes?
Tom didn't
I didn't
receive
I didn't receive them in my package, so I'd like to ask them for consideration.
You would like to ask what, Tom?
That they would be further consideration. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just
actually,
telling you
that's
that.
Mine are here.
Why not?
What'd you do with
They were
them?
number one.
I didn't. I got the same ones Tom didn't get.
This
It was
is the
St.
first
Patrick's
time
Day.
in almost 5 years that this has happened.
It was St. Patrick's Day.
They, I gotta get it.
Did you get them, but Jim
No.
didn't get the minutes either.
Oh, you didn't get the minutes?
Tom didn't get that, and I didn't.
So we can just, yeah, we don't have to continue it, just
Thank
put
you,
it on
Mr.
there.
Chairman.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank
we
you.
should adjourn because we have,
Yes. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that motion carries 5-0.